VC, Vinyl Community Cheers. I think that's how it goes. Wow. It's been a little while. Barry Winslow logging on. I think that's how I said that, right? Geez. Just wanted to hop on and do a video and let you guys just kind of get caught up on my life and also take a look at some recent vinyl finds I've been lucky enough to come across. So I guess just first off, man, I missed you guys. I've been in contact with a couple of the VC members here in I guess the recent past, and they were just like, man, you got to come on, you got to make some videos, and you know, it's been super busy, but I wanted to hop on today not only to show some awesome records, because that's what it's all about, but also to say hi. I'm here for right now. I'm gonna make a video. I'm sure some of you guys are probably gone through and gotten rid of my account or something because it's been so long. I've had such a long absence, but it just felt right. I'm at a spot right now in my life where when I do have time, I can hop on and make a video and just show you guys some cool records, which is what I want to do today. So, but a little bit about kind of where I'm at and what I'm doing. I'm currently living in Midland, Michigan, which is where I'm born and raised. But I'm going and actually getting my master's degree at Saginaw Valley State University. I'm getting a 2-year Master of Arts degree in Communication and Media Administration. So it's a really awesome program, and I'm really enjoying my classes. I'm in my 2nd semester now of my 1st year, and it's a 2-year program, and hopefully here after I get this master's degree I will find myself getting into the music industry, because I'm sure, as a lot of you guys know, that's what I'm really passionate about, is music. So, but so that's where I find myself. Moved here in August, and just been studying and working full-time student, full-time job. It's not it doesn't leave me with a whole lot of time to and, you know, have some downtime and do things that I really enjoy. But I did want to hop on and say hi, VC. VC cheers. I got some coffee, some black coffee here today. And I guess without further ado, I wanted to get into a really big stack of records. Some things that I've picked up that I've been really excited about. I'm going to take you guys kind of back a little ways in this dig to a couple different locations of things that I've picked up, I would say in about the last 3 months. So I got a pretty hefty stack here. I do want to get right into it. What's playing in the background right now? This is Procol Harum, Broken Barricades. I believe this is 1971. If you guys aren't familiar with Procol Harum, I'm sure a lot of you are, or if you're not, you probably know their big hit off their debut album, Whiter Shade of Pale. But Gary Brooker on vocals, and Robin Trower on lead guitar here. Geez, what a great band. A lot of people call them like the granddaddies of progressive rock. They kind of came in and took the progressive rock orchestral rock thing by storm in the late 60s. This is a later work of theirs, and this actually happens to be one of my favorite Procol Harum albums. If you haven't gotten into Procol Harum, seriously do yourself a favor and dig in. These guys are exceptional musicians. Gary Brooker has just a beautiful voice, and some of the stuff that he's done on albums like Salty Dog and Home, their solo debut, they're really great musicians, and someone worth checking out. So that's Procol Harum, Broken Barricades on the turntable behind me. Alright, so first things first, I want to show you guys just a few albums of just some things that I picked up from a buddy of mine. He recently moved into a house here in Midland with his wife. They recently got married, and he came across some stuff from his dad's friend that was getting rid of a few records. And we were over there at his house, and I was looking through his stuff, and he's got a great little collection. Got a nice little vintage Marantz receiver. He's got a cool little setup. And I was just flipping through his stuff, and I came across a couple titles where I was like, hey man, if you want to spin these, and if you don't like them, I mean, by all means, if you like them, hang on to them, enjoy them. But if you don't, let me know, because I would absolutely love to take those off your hands. And just so happened a few weeks later, we met up for a couple beers, and he said, "Hey man, come out to my car," and he actually handed me the 2 records, and he said, "You know what? You can just have them, man. They're yours." So this was really cool to me. So I want to show you guys exactly what I'm talking about here. The first of which is Little Feat. Feats Don't Fail Me Now. This is an incredible piece of Southern rock music. Southern rock, boogie rock, great harmonies. This is just awesome. Lowell George is kind of the mastermind behind Little Feat, the creative nucleus of the band, if you will. And God, they did some awesome stuff like Dixie Chicken and Sailing Shoes, and this is an awesome album. I believe this is 1974. It is. Little Feat, Feats Don't Fail Me Now. There is a track on this album, if you want to hear one of like the coolest riffs on a guitar. This riff is so groovy. If you can't move your feet to it, then you must have an issue. The track is called Skin It Back. Skin It Back on the album Feats Don't Fail Me Now. Really happy to have this in collection. And I love that album artwork too. Definitely worth picking up. If you haven't gotten into Little Feat, do so. You really can't go wrong with them. Their stuff throughout the 70s, it really didn't miss a note. It's some really good stuff. So Little Feat, Feats Don't Fail Me Now. The next from my buddy that he handed to me, really happy to have this in the collection. King Crimson in the Wake of Poseidon, their second release. I had been looking for this album for the longest time. I'm a huge Robert Fripp fan. I really like their earlier stuff with Greg Lake on vocals. But I've been looking for this specific title for the longest time. Just, looking around record stores and antique stores, and I've had the hardest time locking this one down. God, I just love that image. Just an awesome album. And yeah, like I said, he just handed it to me. He said, "Here, man, take it off my hands, enjoy." So I took it home and cleaned it up, and I make my own solution and stuff like that, and I was able to wipe this thing down, and it sounds magnificent. So really happy to have this on vinyl in the collection. It's on the Atlantic label. Just great stuff. King Crimson, I mean, how can you go wrong with Robert Fripp? Of course, their debut album, In the Court of the Crimson King, was monumental, and it kind of, put them into this creative, high point, if you will. But I think that this album, honestly, gets overshadowed by In the Court of the Crimson King, and unjustly so. In the Wake of Poseidon is just a beautiful piece of work. I think structurally speaking, from song to song, it's very similar to their debut, and it's worth picking up. If you don't have it, In the Wake of Poseidon by King Crimson, super pumped to have this in the collection. Okay, so these next records are, I got a little bit more than what I just showed you. These are from a record store that actually recently just opened, at least to my awareness. I can't imagine it's a relatively old store, because, I really know a lot of the record stores and places to dig around here. And it actually surprised me. This guy had a great selection. He was a little overpriced, but the things that he had were pretty, some nice rarities, some harder to find stuff, more obscure titles. And it was really fun digging around his store. But anyways, this was in Frankenmuth, Michigan, which is a little south of where I'm at. A really cool German town. And right there on the main drag, I'd never seen it before in my life. This guy had a record shop, LPs for sale, and I was like, well, I gotta go there. So I went and dug around for about a half hour and picked up some really great stuff. So these next titles are from this store in Frankenmuth. First one I picked up, about time I got it in the collection, Mahavishnu Orchestra, Birds of Fire. I can't say enough about Mahavishnu Orchestra. John McLaughlin, just Jerry Goodman. There's this Jan Hammer. This band is just mind-blowing. Billy Cobham on drums. I think Billy Cobham in the stratosphere of drummers, rock drummers, this guy's top 5. I mean, this guy is every bit as much as Neil Peart or John Bonham in my mind. He's a very technical drummer and very powerful. Just an awesome, awesome band. And I think this is definitely one of their better works. I think that their first 3 or 4 albums is where to look. I do like their later stuff, but I don't find it to be quite as intriguing as this era of the band. And I mean, just if you haven't checked out Mahavishnu Orchestra or John McLaughlin's work, he does some really cool stuff with Carlos Santana as well. But Birds of Fire, progressive, really progressive rock. They're not quite as dark as King Crimson, but they're extremely experimental. Awesome tempo changes. This band is all over the place, and of the 5 members here, not one of them is a slouch. I mean, these guys are really, really excellent, superb musicians. Well worth checking out. Mahavishnu Orchestra, Birds of Fire. Happy to have it in the collection. Here's another one here, a little bit later release. Mahavishnu Orchestra. This is called Inner Worlds. A little bit, I don't know if bluesier, but a little bit more horn-based. A little bit lighter, not quite as dark, not quite as intricate as their early works, but still a really cool listen. They're in full force here. They're loud. They're in your face, but it doesn't seem to have quite the bite that sound that I really enjoy in their earlier works, but still a great album. Mahavishnu Orchestra, Inner Worlds, and in my mind, everyone's got their own opinions, and that's what's great about music. I wouldn't go any further than this if you're going to collect Mahavishnu. I think that this really needs to be in the collection, but I personally haven't dug beyond this, and I just don't really feel that I need to. But in regards to Mahavishnu, awesome album, really horn-based. This is a fun album. Inner Worlds, Mahavishnu Orchestra. Awesome album here, Dave Mason. I believe this one is Let It Flow. This was a big album for Dave Mason. I didn't have this in the collection. Obviously, it's got the big hit, You and Me, We Just Disagree. That was a huge, huge hit in the late 70s. I really love Dave Mason. Obviously, a member of Traffic with Steve Winwood and John Capaldi and Chris Wood. But Dave Mason, really, his early solo career stuff is magnificent. And I might come to that here as well. But this is a little bit later in his catalog, and this was a really big commercial hit for Dave Mason. Let It Flow. I believe this is 1977. It is. Let It Flow, 1977. Dave Mason. Really cool album. Yeah. If you haven't checked out Dave Mason, do so. The guy's brilliant. But anyways, 1977, Dave Mason, Let It Flow. Coming up here, these are still from the store in Frankenmuth. Humble Pie, On to Victory. This is a cool album. I wouldn't say it's one of their better works. This is a little bit later in the 70s. But Steve Marriott on vocals. I mean, it's Steve Marriott. You can't beat it. It's Humble Pie. But just great stuff here. Not one of their better works, but I do think that it shouldn't get passed over. If you come across it for a few bucks, pick it up. There's some really groovy songs on this album. On to Victory. I know that the critics aren't a huge fan of it, but I don't know, I put it on and I thought it was pretty groovy. There was some really tight rock licks on here. And Steve Marriott's voice is spectacular on this album. So, like I said, if you see it for a few bucks, pick it up and give it a try. I actually really enjoy it. On to Victory, Humble Pie. A staple in any collection. Came across this for $3. Surrealistic Pillow by Jefferson Airplane. I mean, this you're talking West Coast psychedelia, late 60s, flower power, and whether or not it's a favorite album of yours, it's one of those albums that belongs in your collection. I mean, it's a staple, and it fills a hole. And really, in my opinion, any record collection would be pretty incomplete without Jefferson Airplane, and most definitely Surrealistic Pillow. This was a really great artistic movement, or a statement in the 1960s. And geez, I mean, they went on to be one of the biggest psychedelic rock bands of all time. Not my favorite band in the world. I can't say that I absolutely adore Jefferson Airplane or Jefferson Starship or whatever they wound up being. I know they had a couple different names there, Starship at one point. But, I mean, it's something that, it was a clean copy. It's not perfect. There's a little bit of ring wear, but for $3 or $4, it's something that belongs in any collection of any really, big collector. And it's worth having. Surrealistic Pillow, Jefferson Airplane. The next up is the Byrds, Fifth Dimension. This is one band that I've recently just fallen in love with. And you're probably like, man, Barry, you're just getting into the Byrds. My uncle says it best. Take the Beatles, take Bob Dylan, smash them together, and you've got the Byrds. And I think that's an awesome, awesome explanation for their sound. This album here, Fifth Dimension, I can't say it's their best release, but I can tell you that this is a really incredible piece of music. I mean, obviously from the Byrds, there were members there that went on to go into Flying Burrito Brothers, and obviously Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, David Crosby being in the Byrds. I mean, this is iconic music. The Byrds are a band that you really, if you think about it, you take a country folky sound and you mix it with rock and roll, and they're definitive in the things that what they released. I think they get overshadowed by Dylan and the Beatles. I really do. But I think that significantly speaking, and the amount of significance they have on music, they're essential. So the Byrds, Fifth Dimension, really happy to have this in the collection. Really clean copy too. So if you're just getting into the Byrds like I am, I wouldn't say start here, but pick it up. I think this is an essential work of theirs, Fifth Dimension. As you can see from the text, early psychedelia, and just an iconic American album, really, the Byrds, Fifth Dimension. And I also found their debut, the Byrds, Mr. Tambourine Man. I think that this is the Byrds' best album. I think that their debut, they came out of the gates and they absolutely crushed it. There is not a cut on this album that I don't like. Honest to God, I think that when you look at harmony, you look at rock and roll, you like the, and you listen to the jangly guitar sounds and the harmonies, I think this is definitive. This is such a great album. I love the album artwork here. It's iconic. This is a 5-star album all day, every day, and I'm so happy to have it in the collection. Mr. Tambourine Man, the Byrds debut album, a must-have, an absolute must. Next one here, I kind of talked about Dave Mason earlier. This is Dave Mason's debut, Alone Together. An absolutely iconic album. I wish this was the one that had, originally when this was released, it had a marble colored vinyl record, and unfortunately this is, I don't know about unfortunately, it's on all black, which I love, but I would love to find that original release on the marble colored vinyl. It's really cool. But anyways, this is an absolutely beautiful folk rock album, and that's kind of where my ears have migrated to recently, is getting into late 60s, mid to late 60s, early 70s folk and folk rock. And I wouldn't even say singer-songwriter, because that gets a little bit soft for me, but I do love folk rock, things like this. I think this is really where my ears are falling right now. The Byrds and early Dave Mason are things that I've really been spinning a lot. And I think that this is, in my opinion, Dave Mason's best debut or best solo album. his debut right out of the gates, once again, puts together just an incredible piece of music. It opens with Only You Know and I Know, which is just an awesome song. And there is another track on this one too. It's on side one. I'm forgetting the name of it. But it is such a good song. It's a great folk rock song. Shouldn't Have Took More Than You Gave. That's the last song on side one. That is such an awesome song. Definitely worth having in your collection. If you don't have any Dave Mason, check him out. I would start here. Obviously, his work with Traffic is phenomenal. The early rendition of Traffic is just, it's magnificent. But check out early solo Dave Mason, especially Alone Together. Awesome piece of work. We'll flip this over. Jimmy Spheris. This is probably a name you're not familiar with. This is a song or an album called Isle of View. Obviously a play on words. Isle of You, I love you. Man, if you want to talk about just a really chill, harmonious, relaxing, folky, transcendent, relaxing, peaceful music, this is it. Jimmy Spheris. S-P-H-E-E-R-I-S. Jimmy Spheris. This guy right here, if you want to set the mood, if you're feeling like you want to call a woman up and have a glass of wine, this is it, guys. This is the go-to. This is absolutely beautiful music. 5 stars all day, every day in my book. There's the man himself on the back. He's a name that has flown under the radar, most definitely. And you know, I love when you come across stuff like this. I learned about Jimmy Spheris through my uncle, and he told me a little bit about his story and his music, and this is the only one I have of him in the collection. And he continued to put out some really great music, but I think that this is his best work. If you ever come across this gorgeous gold record here with this guy sitting on like some type of big majestic bird or something, but Jimmy Spheris, Isle of View, this album is absolutely beautiful. It's gorgeous. Worth picking up. Just beautiful, relaxing folk music. A must-have. And I know I talked about Mahavishnu Orchestra in the stack a little earlier. This band here, the Flock, is where the original violin player that's in Mahavishnu, Jerry Goodman, is where he came from. Jerry Goodman is just a wild man on violin. If you like progressive violin, Jean-Luc Ponty, if you're into really like progressive rock music or fusion music, check out The Flock. This is a really great album. They only put out 2 albums. This is their debut, just self-titled The Flock, and this is a really great progressive rock album. I almost get like a mix of, these guys are really hard to explain. You can't just like say this is what they sound like, but I would say that they're like a pretty good mix of like Edgar Winter's White Trash with Mahavishnu. I mean, those are really like 2 very different things, but there's a lot of progressive tendencies here, but they're laid over top of like a blues and gospel kind of structure. A really unique sound. The vocals here are out of this world. A lot of soul, a lot of really good hefty feel. I mean, there's a lot of feel on this album, and I've never heard a band quite like them. They're very unique in their sound, and the way that they approach progressive music is unlike any band that I've ever heard. I know that there are other releases after this. I forget the name of it. But I find that it's not quite as intriguing as this one. Self-titled The Flock. Pick it up. This is a really cool piece of music, and Jerry Goodman on the violin here, he's like the centerpiece of this band. It's a 7-piece band, and he's the highlight of the group for sure. But these guys are tight, they're great musicians, and they put together some really cool music. The Flock. And once again, from that same store, this is Dave Mason. Once again, It's Like You Never Left. I think that this album, along with Let It Flow and Alone Together, are really his best works, solo works, in my opinion. It's Like You Never Left. This is a really cool album. I'm sure you guys have seen this laying around before. It's a pretty iconic album cover. There's the man himself. Dave Mason, solo Dave Mason. I really like this album. I got it really cheap too. It's in good condition. Headkeeper, Every Woman, It's Like You Never Left, The Lonely One. This is a beautiful album, and I'm really happy to have it in the collection. For $3, I couldn't pass it up. It's Like You Never Left, Dave Mason. Okay, so this next stack, I'm going to try to get through them pretty quick. But this next stack is from a record convention that I actually just went to this past weekend. It was in Bay City, and my uncle came up from Lansing, and him and I have been collecting records together for quite some time. In fact, it's where a lot of my music originally came from in this collection, are my uncles. So he kind of helped me out on this whole record collecting thing. But this next stack, it was a huge convention. There was about 25 vendors. I'd say about 60 to 65 tables of records. I dug at this record convention for about 3.5 hours, and I wound up getting out of there for less than $100. I picked up 18 albums, and I had the time of my life, and I came across some stuff that I've been looking for a really long time, and I also filled some really big holes in my collection that I was looking to fill. So let's get right into it. This is where these next ones are from, are the record convention. I want to show you this one last. I finally got it. I finally completed my Led Zeppelin collection. Good Lord, it took me forever. But am I ever happy to say, check, I have everything by Led Zeppelin. Jeez, oh Pete. No reissues, no represses. I'm kind of a fan of the original. Even if the sound quality isn't quite to the standards of those really awesome 180-gram reissues. I don't know, there's something about just having an original vinyl record in my collection that makes me happy. As weird as that might sound, but finally I've got Led Zeppelin 3, a clean copy. I got it for $6. Awesome sleeve. All of the albums that I got at this place were sleeved, and these aren't Blake sleeves, but they should be. And they really bring out the look of the vinyl, or the sleeve here. But I finally have Led Zeppelin 3, one of their greatest works. You know, people call it their acoustic album, although there's some really hard rocking songs on this. But God, I'm so happy, and the cover is still intact. It works. The spin wheel works just awesome in this. You can see that. There you go. Finally, I have a copy of Led Zeppelin 3 in my collection, so that completes the Holy Triumphant Mighty Blimp. Vance, I'm sure you're probably laughing at me right now, saying, "My God, Barry, you just finished your Led Zeppelin collection? Come on, man." He's probably got 97 issues of every one of these. But finally, Led Zeppelin 3. I'm all done with Zeppelin. Happy to have this in the collection. A huge gaping hole that I was really happy to fill. An awesome album here that I was happy to find, Doobie Brothers, Toulouse Street. I know that this is the first incarnation, or the first, lineup of the Doobie Brothers. And, I mean, listen to the music, rocking down the highway. Jesus is Just All Right, Toulouse Street. This this is a really good album. I got it for like $3. It's in great shape. All these albums are in beautiful shape. I cleaned them up. Really, they just needed a dusting. But super happy to have that. Toulouse Street. There's a few more Doobie Brothers albums that I got to fill in, but I don't think that they're as prominent as this album. This was a huge hole that I was happy to fill. So, Doobie Brothers, Toulouse Street. The Allman Brothers. I mean, this is pretty self-explanatory here. Live at Fillmore East. Considered one of the greatest live albums of all time, and some people go on to say one of the greatest albums of all time. And from beginning to end, this is an incredible album. I'm a huge fan of the Allman Brothers. Even early Greg Allman stuff. Dickie Betts did some awesome stuff with Great Southern. But this is magnum opus, height of their career, incredible musicianship right here, Allman Brothers. So happy to have this in the collection. I got myself a really clean copy. I spent a few additional bucks on it. I think I got it for like $8 or $9. I was happy to pay every dollar for this because this is an album you should pay $9, $10 for. Worth having in the collection. I don't care who you are. And clean copy. So happy to have this in the collection. I spun this the other day and it took my head right off. So, live at Fillmore East, the Allman Brothers Band. Super pumped. I'm almost